see if we can get more information as to why he has not made the call and is lining up in his pole position spot. I'm Dave Bradley. Those two gentlemen are doing the French stream for us here today, and so they are not me, but I'm happy to be here with you all weekend long, bringing you all of the information in English, all the racing action in English. We've already had 2 races in the books, the last chance qualifier for the Chevrolet Urban Challenge, the modifieds, dirt modifieds on the track. That was won by Raphael Lazard. The Sports Car Championship Canada just finished their 40-minute timed race. This one will be 20 minutes for the Legends cars. There you can see Danny Chisholm in the 87 is tagged onto the tail of the field. He has the white typical Legends cars. Now, he qualified almost 2 seconds quicker than the rest of the field. As a matter of fact, well, just over 1 second quicker than Alexander Gannett in the 69. So Gannett will start on pole in the 69 car, followed by Maxime Pelletier, Jesse Lambert, Alexandre Gauthier, Benoit Landry, Yannick Thibault, Maxime Prudhomme, Frédéric Ladesseur, Dominique Thibault, and Felix Antoine Como, Alexandre Pichet, Hugo Paquette, Eric Boisclair, Gabriel Janot, and Marc-André Picard, Maxime Tardif, Frédéric Robitaille, and Joanie Lambert, Peter Robitaille, Sonny Roy, and Jacques Villeneuve will round out the field. And wait a second, did you hear that correctly? Jacques Villeneuve? Yes, it is Jacques Villeneuve, the uncle. So a former snowmobile racer, former Formula Atlantic driver here at the GP3R. He's racing a Legends car here today. It took a spill yesterday, catching the wall, but got that car all fixed up, replacing the front suspension, and able to make the start here today in that back marker 66. There he is there. You can see the yellow helmet through the windshields. For Jacques Villeneuve has a long and storied history from nearby Joliette, Quebec. So very much in front of a hometown crowd as the field lines up. Nicely 2x2 through turn number 11. We'll look for the green this time. 20 minutes, a scheduled time distance for the Legends cars here at the Grand Prix at Trois-Rivières. As is often the case, it's a land rush start. One of the drivers with a door open has to slow down and get that problem rectified in between turns 1 and 2. As you can see, the drivers cleanly through turn 3, now down the back straightaway. No chicane for these drivers. The modifieds, the only ones that we do see a chicane off of turn number 3 as we enter onto the back straightaway. And hard under braking. You can see these cars are pretty dicey when they get hard on the brakes. A couple of drivers have to grab a handful of wheel and get them settled down before they make their way through turn number 6. Danny Chisholm started at the back. He's already up about 10 places further up from where he started as they work through turn number 4. Some of these drivers starting to give a little bit of a flick. Maxime Pelletier is one of them. First lap officially in the books as the green flag shown from the flag stand once again. Pelletier, Gannett, Gauthier, Lambert, Thibault, your top 5 right now. And problems, it's your race leader, goes around the 66X of Maxime Pelletier. That car stalled in turn number 2, and he's crossways as well. So the local caution is out, but he needs a push. He's indicating to the cleanup crew that he needs a push. Look at that, it's Gannett on the inside making contact. Just a little bit sends the 66X around. We're under green still. But what a turn of events For the driver, the 66, who is still stopped, he's going to need a push start, as they have onboard starters, but the starter for Maxime Pelletier not engaging at this point, possibly locked into gear. So full course caution is now out on the track, as you saw one of the cleanup officials tending to the 66X. So Maxime Pelletier went from leader across the line to last place in turn number 2. After contact with the 69 of Alexander Gannett. See him trying to indicate to the cleanup crew that something might be broken, so it might be an issue with the rear end. Sometimes when you clip tires with these cars, when they're locked into gear, and then we'll strip that gear, and unfortunately for Pelletier, it looks like he's going to require a tow back to the paddock area as we continue under caution. Just one official lap in the books under green, but this is a timed race and the clock continues to tick down, even under caution, as we welcome Todd Lewis to the booth, done with his television duties with Sports Car Championship Canada, and out of the sunshine into the nice air conditioning here. This wonderful location we've got set up here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières.
Yeah, beautiful conditions. Not so much out on track now as we're waiting for Maxime Pelletier to be removed from the circuit so we can get back going. In just over 16 minutes, this is a quick dash in these legend cars, and if aggression is any indication based on the equation of time remaining, could be kind of interesting in these final laps as we get going.
And you know what really is interesting and what's telling about this series is you watch them on the first lap as they try to dive into the corner to try and make a pass. These cars are not steady under braking at all. They handle a lot like the dirt modifieds do. They're a little bit more stable than the dirt modifieds. They don't necessarily hang out crossways in some of these corners, but under braking, these drivers will dive the nose, and it just puts so much weight onto the front tires that any sort of movement of the steering wheel causes the back end to slide around and get very, very happy. So it equals a handful for these drivers.
Would twitchy be the best word to maybe describe that? You're right, because of the weight transfer from back to front as you're heading into the braking areas. The other issue that, of course, you have to deal with are the bumps around the circuit. They can be unsettling to the cars as well, whether it's entering or making your way through some of the corners. 6 would perhaps be the best example of that, but it looks like we're doubling up now, and we might get going again pretty quickly.
Yeah, quick cleanup. That car in turn 2 likely just towed to the runoff area in turn number 3 so we can get back to racing. Just 5 minutes in the books, still 14 and a half minutes left to be completed. Keep an eye. The 87, Danny Chisholm, started at the back. He's now up to 6th place in that white number 81. So no, not a start this time as the safety car returns to the track. Still a full course caution, and it is for Pelletier. So he managed to get refired and then didn't.
Then had a problem circulating around the course, so they'll have to go out and try and retrieve them. Maybe this time they will just pull him off to the side, but now the anticipation will build a little further. Everyone will separate again, probably get into some single file formation, try to keep a little heat in tires, but again, it's another opportunity to circulate around and see where the chances to gain position lie ahead off this restart and then in the remaining 14 minutes of action.
That's a great camera angle because look at the shimmer coming off the racetrack. It is a hot one here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières today. A heat warning in effect from Environment Canada. So if you're coming to the track still this afternoon, just make sure to seek out some shade at times, take some breaks from the heat, and of course drink lots of water over the course of the day. But that does make for very challenging conditions for some of these drivers. And in these cars, these small cars, I mean, the heat just essentially comes right back into the driver compartment and fills that up and makes it a really, really physically demanding situation for some of these drivers.
The news is about 40 minutes, 45 minutes old right now, but the temperature taken was already above 90 Fahrenheit on the track, and I suspect it has only gone up since that was done, and I was watching it in pit lane at the start of the sports car race. So it is warm out there, and that affects the handling, it affects the driver comfort, and if driver discomfort comes in, that affects the decision-making process of all drivers.
The mental fatigue that sets in for these drivers too. When you're worried about how hot it is, then you stop thinking about your braking points and where you need to go on track, and you know, maybe not catching up to the twitchiness of that race car as quick as you need to, as Pelletier getting a push now off to the runoff area. So his race is officially completed now. He was a couple laps down to your race leader. So I think we're too far in. Yeah, we're passing pit lane, so it might be too far to double up.
Safety car went by pit lane entrance. They did not get that car, Maxime Pelletier, out of the way in time, so we'll circulate one more lap. And then we will go back to green with, I would anticipate, about 10 minutes or so remaining in this race. And that sounds like a trophy dash towards the end of it, especially in these legend cars.
Yeah, for sure. Interesting, we talked about the heat and some of the driver comforts. You saw a few of them with the door open. They have suicide-style doors, if you're unfamiliar with what that is. The door's open at the front. You see, there's the number 25 is doing that, or the number 52, I should say. That's Frederick Lattiser is doing it, trying to get some air in the car. That's essentially what you're doing. You're putting out this big parachute, and you're trying to direct that air into the driver cockpit to cool yourself down.
And you'd think that these are not sealed up race cars or sports cars and the like, but still, the amount of heat generated with the windshield on, it blocks any sort of airflow directly at the driver. Even if you crack the visor a little bit, it's not going to get much air in. So do what you can to circulate and get a little bit of a breeze while you're circulating around the track at a slower speed.
There you can see the 66X of Jacques Villeneuve, the 66, or sorry, just the straight 66 of Jacques Villeneuve. 66N is Maxime Tardif. Towards the tail of the field, the 66X of Maxime Pelletier. So this is very much like the modifieds. I mean, it's essentially cars coming from all over, so they're trying to include everybody so you can throw a letter on your number. It's difficult to see from our vantage point, but you get used to it eventually. But it's the differentiating of different drivers. A lot of these cars coming out of the same stable too, so a backup car can be used by a guest driver like a Jacques Villeneuve, who obviously doesn't run one of these full time.
Making their way around to the final few corners on the lap, the doubling up has begun again. Looks like the lights are out on the pace car, so we should be able to see that disappear down pit lane and return to some green flag action, and looks like it'll be about 10 minutes, maybe just under 10 minutes of racing that remains. Let's hope fall under green.
Be interesting to see the start. It was pretty cordial in the initial start. Everybody did fan out, but everybody got sort of settled and sorted before getting to turn number 3. That's really the sort of pinch point that the drivers need to have their position in line. By the time they get to turn number 3, you want to have it all sorted, because going too wide through there is pretty dicey. So they did it on the initial start. We'll see if they can do it on the restart here. So it'll be Alexander Gannett and Jesse Lambert along with Alexandre Gauthier. That is your top 3. Benoit Landry and Yannick Thibault round out the top 5 as the green flag waves once again. We're back underway in the Legend Series. Danny Chisholm is the one in the white car with the fenders. He started at the back of the pack. He was the quickest qualifier yesterday. He's a driver out of the east coast of Canada, normally runs in Nova Scotia, former champion at Scotia Speed World, but he's also done some racing down through the U.S. as well, winning a championship in the Pro-Am division at Nashville, and also finishing second in Charlotte in a Legends car. So he knows how to get it done.
It was a good fight up at the front for the lead between Jesse Lambert and Alexandre Gannett, and it looks like Lambert has taken the lead as they head towards that left-hander. And there you see Danny Chisholm, that white car, looking to gain another position, and he will make the pass.
Around Benoit Landry as we've got one into the wall, and it's Alexandre Gauthier, who was in 3rd spot, overcooked it in turn number 6. And we've seen this happen several times in several different divisions. You saw the brake smoke, and then he was actually too committed to take the runoff area. He had no choice to nose it into the tire wall.
It did look like he had slowed down, and I'm not sure that there's a lot of damage. And no, they just needed a little pushback, and he is away. That 84 of Alexandre Gauthier continues.
No reverse on that car, so that's problematic. The 87 of Chisholm is now up to 2nd position, chasing your race leader, Jesse Lambert. Alexander Gannett, who was leading a couple laps ago. We got a leader around just in front of the 87. He has to hard on the brakes. Look at that. They're piling up in turn number 2.
So much for the fenders on that 89 of Danny Chisholm now. And now the 40 car is also stopped on course. And the 64 has had all kinds of trouble, got loops around and finally pointed in the right direction. Jesse Lambert just lost it under his own. He was feeling the heat, obviously, from Chisholm, then got a little hot through that left-hander, and around it went.
See, he was trying to give it a little flick into turn number 2 and let it sort of drift, and then Chisholm really had to get hard on the brakes and stopped in front of Alexander Gannett, and Gannett climbed the back fender of the number 87. Chisholm kept going, fiberglass flailing in the wind, but he is still your race leader.
With that fender dangling over the right rear, and is it going to hang on for the duration of this race? Just under 7 minutes left.
That's a considerable amount of damage to that race car right now. As you can see, the back bumper is completely flattened. That's what created the jump for Gannett to actually climb up on the back end of that number 87 as the Chisholm car was trying to get going again after stopping for a spinning number 69 at the front of the field.
That was just the accordion effect of the 64 spinning, then Danny Chisholm trying to get stopped up, getting hard on the brakes, and then others climbing and taking evasive action, trying to avoid further carnage.
And where that happens is essentially a blind corner, as most are here on this street circuit, because you have walls on the inside, walls on the outside as well. But as you're coming around turn 2, it's a fairly high-speed turn. And by the time the rest of the field got there, so Danny Chisholm was first on scene. He saw it happen. He hopped on the brakes, got slowed down, but everybody else coming through did not know at that point. It's too late to see a corner marshal. You're already committed to the corner, and you're already committed to the speed. So it's really reactionary, and when the track is plugged, you've got a problem.
All seems to have sorted out now, with obviously a number of drivers falling further down the field, but the 87 of Danny Chisholm is out in front. 3 of the 4 fenders in good place, but
that is a mechanical black flag being shown to Danny Chisholm because of the parts and pieces flapping on the back end. The bodywork that is hanging off the back end of the 87. Chisholm will be forced to pit lane. He just set fast time of the race too, with a 1:17.7. So that will make the number 69 of Alexander Gannett your new race leader as soon as Chisholm reports to the pit lane to get that either taped or taken off. Maxime Prudhomme in the number 59 in second, and then Frederick Ladisser, once things sorted out, will be in the final podium position.
Should things stay the same. We've still got 4.5 minutes, and I'm not convinced that this is going to be the running order by the time we get to the checkered flag. There's been so much action in the last 5 minutes.
The 73 of Yannick Thibault is right there within striking distance as well as he takes a look on the outside of turn 7. Can he put together a run for turn number 8? And it really, I mean, it's sort of up to the drivers as Chisholm does report to pit lane, and now you can see that fairing and the fender is sort of dragging on the ground, so he'll be disappointed in what will be his finish here today. So he'll fall to the back of the pack. What is the 59 doing, or the 69 of Alexander Gannett, going way on the outside, close to the wall, trying to put together a different run for turn number 1?
That's a very wide drift over to driver's left before the right-hander in corner number 1, but so far everybody seems to have gotten through it okay, but that is a much wider angle than we have normally seen.
You run the risk of getting into the dirty part of the track when you start doing that as well. So he got lucky that time. We'll see if he can do it 2 laps in a row, or if he continues to do it. Alexander Gannett just set his fastest time of the race that last time by, so whatever he's doing seems to be working as this battle picks up now between the 52 Frederick Ladisser and Yannick Thibault in the 73. Thibault taking a look. You can see the 52 does have mirrors, so trying to fill those mirrors is the driver of the 73.
Those front 3 have tightened up a little bit, just a little bit of a gap from the 59, but That is a good battle for position.
Yeah, the leader seems to have gotten away just a little bit in Alexander Gannett. So this is second, third, and fourth on track. And it is probably the best battle on track as it stands right now. 2.5 minutes left to be completed of this 20-minute timed race after a lengthy caution period. Started things off. Thibault still trying to close. And I'm looking at lap times fairly identical from second, third, and fourth. That last time by 1:18.8, 1:18.8, and a 1:18.8. So very, very close for those drivers. Is one of the 66s. That's Jacques Vilna. You can tell by the yellow helmet as Vilna goes for a spin in turn number 8.
Just got a little wide there, looped it around, but is now course corrected and back out on track while the battle continues to rage out front. The 87 of Danny Chisholm has just put in a blistering lap of a 1:15.8. The leader is running a 1:18.1 last time around. That is a sizzling lap from Danny Chisholm.
So Chisholm came down pit lane, but only lost a handful of positions. I think they ripped it off very quickly, and the 87 released. He's still in the top 5 overall, even with making that pit stop or pit slow down, really. You can see him coming into the top of the screen, so he's on the same straightaway as your race leader.
Is he going to have enough time to maybe gain a little spot back and try to make up a little ground? Does not gain a position on that last lap, but at 1:15.5 is the time, currently running 5th behind the 73 of Yannick Thibault. And now we have another spin with the 40 car going around once again. That's Benoit Landry, who has gone around, and it is in a very precarious spot going through the final sequence of corners before coming out to the start-finish line.
Oh, this is probably going to cause a full course. Unless he can get it refired and get going, this will likely end things under caution. That's the 66 of Jacques Villeneuve Sr. So the brother of Gilles Villeneuve. These drivers going through that chicane on the exit at turn number 3, heading down the straightaway. So the 69 of Alexander Gannett is your leader, and we do have a full course caution that has come out, and it looks like time will have elapsed enough. Have another look at what happened to the 40. No, this is further back. So that's Hugo Paquette in the 13. He caught those tire wall, or the tire barriers, the chicane that's set up to slow the drivers down as they head out onto the straightaway. So we do have over 20 minutes completed. We're under a full course caution at this point, so the result's not yet complete. And the reason we are under a caution is for the spun 40 of Benoit Landry, and I believe that's in turn 11 as the drivers come back onto the front straightaway. Yeah, and this is going to probably end it under caution as we've got the white flag out. The cleanup crew hasn't even managed to get to the 40 yet of Benoit Landry as they were waiting for the rest of the field to come together and get into an organized line. So it looks like that will not happen. The 13 has refired. Hugo Paquette after making contact with the tire wall, the chicane. But the field's collected behind the safety car, and this is how it's going to end here today.
Yeah, that would have been quite an exciting finish to see this one go to the checkers under green flag conditions, but everybody pushing hard in the closing minutes of this race, trying to gain every position that they can. You saw the 13 just clip the tire wall, and that sent Hugo Paquette around, plus the 40 car going around. Just no time to clear those 2 incidents before the time limit ran out. So we'll finish under caution, and it looks like it will be the 69 car that makes its way to the finish, followed by the 59 of Maxime Prudhomme and Frédéric Ladouceur in the 52.
And, of course, the Legends cars will have one more race on the weekend. That one will finish things off tomorrow afternoon at about 4:25 after the NASCAR Pinty Series completes their on-track activities. So one more opportunity for this group to head on out and put on a show for the fans here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, and the fans as well watching from home. We thank you very much. As you can see, the door is open on the 69 of Alexander Gannett, who will come home your winner in 2 more turns as they slowly work their way around this circuit. And they were shown the white flag last time, and there it is. Checkered flag will fly, so it is official. Alexander Gannett, Maxime Prudhomme, Frederic Ladouceur, and then Yannick Thibault, Danny Chisholm survives for a top 5. But boy, that was an exciting little race for these little cars, the Legends cars, as Gannett's gonna do some donuts in turn number 1, the typical place that you can do donuts here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. That's where the fans have built in the grandstands, and they continue to file in here on Saturday of the 52nd running of the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières.
It's great for the drivers down there too when they're doing those donuts and the celebrations. You can hear and see the fans and the cheers, and really even inside the sports cars and like, you can really hear the crowd get behind them. And I believe those are the first donuts that have been put down this weekend. I suspect we'll see a lot more.
That's true. We haven't seen any other divisions or classes do donuts, so good celebration here for Alexander Gannett. And why not? I mean, it's one of the biggest races for a lot of these drivers. It's the one they circle on their calendars. And we've talked about it yesterday, talked about it a little bit this morning as well. It's an event that comes with significant prestige no matter what class you are running. You want to win the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, and that's exactly what Alexander Gannett did here today. So a solid field of race cars rolled off on a Saturday morning here on the streets of Three Rivers, Quebec. And turn 1 was okay. Turn 2, not bad either as the field filed through, but these cars showed that they were an absolute handful turning left and right on this track, bouncing over the bumps. And this is where things went wrong for who was your race leader, Pelletier. Contact with Gannett in turn number 1, and that sent the 66 around.
Just 2 cars looking to gain as much track position as they can. Both came together in the same piece of asphalt. Unfortunately, that would be the end of the former leader.
Good news for Gannett. No damage to the front suspension of the number 69, but he lost a few spots on that restart, and then they just started eliminating themselves. The 84 caught the tire wall in turn number 6, and then the 64 went around by himself as your race leader. There's Chisholm getting that body damage. Actually, it was Gannett who hit him. Chisholm was the leader for a short period of time before being shown the meatball flag, the mechanical black flag, and here's the pit stop and how long it took. Fender off, away you go.
No sense wasting any time, but it was the 69 out in front of Alexander Gannett who took the lead and then extended it into the closing laps, stretching out. And there you see one of the problems that resulted in this yellow flag that has caused this race to end under caution.
There's the second problem as well, the 13 of Hugo Paquette going around after clipping that movable tire wall, the chicane on the entrance to the back straightaway. And some celebratory donuts for your race winner, Alexander Gannett, taking the first race of the weekend for the Legends Series here as part of the 52nd running of the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. There you can see the top 10. So Chisholm does come back for 5th place, so he was flying.
What a run for Danny Chisholm, having to make that stop, have the fender removed in just about record time, but charges back up to a 5th place finish, followed by Dominic Thibault, Eric Boisclair, Jesse Lambert, Marc-André Picard, and Alexander Piche, the top 10.
So that does it for now. The practice for the NASCAR Pinty Series will be the next event on track. So when we return, we'll come back at 2 o'clock this afternoon for the Nissan Sentra Cup and their second race of the weekend, after their first one ended under caution as well at the end of the day yesterday. So That'll be around 2 o'clock this afternoon. We have Formula 1600 coming up. We'll have NASCAR Pinty Series qualifying, and then the Super Production Challenge, and the final for the Chevrolet Urban Challenge, a 25-lap feature. You'll want to watch that one, because that one, much like this Legends Series, but it's on a grander scale, a little bit more speed, a little bit more action and cars. But anything can happen in that race, and we're excited to watch it for sure. The 24 of Raphael Lazard had to come through the last chance qualifier earlier on today, so he'll start at the back of the pack, but he has been fast all weekend long. And looking forward to seeing that feature coming up at 6:15 this evening. But again, we're going to take a quick break. The NASCAR Pinty Series practice will be on track next, and the next race of record will be for the Nissan Sentra Cup. That coming up at 2 o'clock. For Todd Lewis, I'm Dave Bradley. Thank you once again for joining us here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. We'll be back with more at 2 o'clock.
À mon tour de vous souhaiter la bienvenue sur le site du Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières pour cette 52e édition en compagnie de Gérard Saint-Germain. Salut Gérard!
Salut mon ami Frédéric, c'est un honneur pour moi de faire partie de ton équipe aujourd'hui.
Ben écoute, c'est un honneur qui est partagé, bien évidemment. NASCAR Pinties, vous l'attendiez ce moment, les premiers essais libres ici en piste sur le circuit de Trois-Rivières. On aura 26 voitures au total qui seront sur la piste du Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. C'est la plus belle participation depuis 2014.
Et c'est une étape aussi importante en ce qui concerne les temps de pratique. Puis c'est là qu'on fait les ajustements. On a un circuit routier, on tourne à gauche, on tourne à droite. Est-ce qu'on a du survirage, du sous-virage? Alors on va être à l'écoute, on va faire des arrêts au puits, s'arranger pour mécaniser le véhicule et on peut s'attendre à des bons temps puisqu'on a une température qui est tout à fait exceptionnelle.
Oui, qui est exceptionnelle. D'ailleurs, on vous rappelle de vous hydrater comme il faut dans les estrades, évidemment, du Grand Prix Trois-Rivières avec ce temps excessivement chaud. On aura une période d'essai libre pour l'heure du dîner de midi à 13h et par la suite, séance de qualification un peu plus tard cet après-midi.
En fin de journée, et ça, c'est très important. Oui. On l'a mentionné tantôt, on est sur un circuit routier. La position de départ est très importante pour les pilotes puisqu'on doit conserver, bien entendu, cette position de départ. On a plusieurs endroits sur un circuit routier où on peut s'avantager en ayant un bon freinage. Alors, on va voir ce qui va se passer. Mais toutes ces bolides, comme Frédéric vous l'a mentionné, 26 Pinties seront en compétition. Un record pour ici à Trois-Rivières. Il faut surveiller aussi nos Québécois qui sont en piste.
Check 1 2, 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 check 1 2. Truck, are you hearing me? Truck, it's English stream feed. It's the producer Joel. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. NASCAR Pinty Series is going out. The NASCAR Pinty Series is on track. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. Check 1 2, 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 check 1 2. Check 1 2, check 1 2, check 1 2. Pinty Series is on track. Kevin Lacroix is on track with his brand new Napa 74 Dodge, followed by DJ Kennington in the Castrol Dodge 17. Both are winners here at GP3R. 24-car field here today. This is the NASCAR Pinty Series practice. Actually, 26 cars we have registered. 26 cars. Some heat in this General tires. We'll use this first lap to make sure the oil's up to temperature, tires are up to temperature. Sam Fellows in the 98. A couple of new sponsors on that car. The new Camaro body on that one. LP Dumoulin from right here in Trois-Rivières. And LP Montour, teammate to LP, just behind in the 13th. Dexter Stacy in the 92. That's a brand new McCall chassis. He drives for Ed Hackinson Racing.
And once again, fans, a little bit of a change of plans as the NASCAR Pinty Series out on track for their practice here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. As we take a good look at that new paint scheme for the 74 of Kevin Lacroix. Take a little bit of getting used to the Napa colors on board the 74. Beautiful looking machine debuted here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. It was announced a few weeks ago. But we're just a couple of minutes into this practice session. It'll go on for more than an hour. It'll give us a pretty good idea of where people are running. It's the first on-track opportunity for the NASCAR Pinty Series this weekend as they get set for the Russo Metals 60 presented by Julio Wines. Marc-Antoine Cameron, really no shock to see him quickest on the times already. The 27. There's Andrew Ranger, his teammate in the GM Paillet, number 27. As Ranger, no stranger to victory lane in the NASCAR Pinty Series. Second, JF Dumoulin, third already. So that's going to be one of those question marks that we'll be watching over the course of this weekend as Todd Lewis, a familiar voice from the NASCAR Pinty Series on TSN, joins me in the booth. But there are a few wild cards in this race. You've got JF Dumoulin. You've got Jacques Vilna. He's finished on the podium here in the past. He's running the 07 here this weekend, so expect him to get up to speed over the course of this practice session. And then you have other drivers who we've seen mixed in over the course of the year. Again, they want to go hard here at the GP3R.
Well, you mentioned Jacques Villeneuve, and he is running a car prepared by Dumoulin Competition. So JF Dumoulin, LP Dumoulin, and LP Montour all coming out of that same stable. They have very reliable and fast race cars. I was joking with JF Dumoulin the other day, and we did 3, 2, and 1 with our fingers pointing at one another because two races ago he finished third. Last year,
just exiting pit lane, so he's yet to set a new or a lap of record at this point. But there's a couple fresh, brand new faces to the NASCAR Pinty Series as well. As a matter of two of them, Dominic St. Cyr behind the wheel of the EHR number 3. He's yet to take time, and we also have a new driver in the 55 who has yet to hit the track, I believe, as well.
So yes, getting a look at Marc-Antoine Cameron along pit lane after putting in a few laps, and then yes, is back in pit lane to the attention of his team to check tire temperatures and just see how that car is doing. There's the 39 of Alex Gannett, who also is back with the series this weekend for road circuit events, and he has shown a great deal of speed here and at other places during the NASCAR Pinty Series.
Last time we were on a street circuit was at the Toronto Indy, and Alex Gannett actually had a very solid run there. A quiet run, but he ended up at or near the top 5 for pretty much the entire afternoon and really didn't put a mark on that race car either. So he took care of his equipment all race long, and in the end, it helped him out in a good, solid finishing position in that 39. So I think there's another one of those dark horses that we'll be watching over the course of the day.
That is definitely a key to success here, is navigating your way through to the conclusion of all 60 laps during the race on Sunday. That's the 27 of Andrew Ranger that is back on pit lane now after also turning out a few laps just to get the feel of that number 27 Paillet Chevrolet and just see how Andrew Ranger likes it. It's interesting you mentioned that he has had so much success here with 4 victories, 7 runner-up finishes, but a year ago was his worst ever finish here at the Grand Prix in Trois-Rivières. I believe he was 19th last year, had to retire early with brake issues.
That's right. The 51s actually struggled with brake issues in the Rick Ware Racing entry. There is a good look at the 07 Prolong Control sponsored entry into the Dumoulin Competition shop. That's Jacques Vilna, former Formula One world champion, and he hasn't just been sitting on his hands in the last several years. Of course, he's been an outspoken commentator on Formula One, but he's also been racing NASCAR in Europe. And so what's interesting about NASCAR in Europe is they run only on road courses. So they turn left and right in a heavy stock car like these ones. They're very, very similar to the NASCAR Pinty Series cars. Actually, a little less technology in the NASCAR Europe cars compared to the Pinty Series. So he should be pretty familiar with this car straight out of the gate.
And just looks like he's done a reconnaissance lap to go out, make sure that everything is okay. He'll come to the attention of the Dumoulin team just to have a quick chat, make sure that everything is okay. They did have a quick shakedown earlier this week in that car, but right now it's just let's get the feel of it. And an hour of practice time is plenty for Jacques Vilna to get comfort.
And you know what? He also has an experienced crew chief in his corner, too, in Bill Burns, who has been helping him in Europe. So they, too, have already gelled. So that part is out of the way. A little shakedown of the car, and he should be fine come race time. As a matter of fact, he's been out for 6 laps right now. He's already set the 13th quickest time, has Jacques Vilna. That is the fastest man of this Pinty Series practice session so far, the 96 of Marc-Antoine Cameron from St. Leonard d'Aston.
Boy, has he shown an awful lot of speed so far this season in the Pinty Series, scoring victories in Newfoundland and also scoring a victory in Edmonton. He has led far more laps than anyone else in the series this year, and he could have actually won more races than the 2 he has already scored.
Saw the smoke off the nose of the 1 of JP Bergeron, and that will be the story of the 60-lap race on Sunday afternoon here at the GP3R, protecting your brakes. So a lot of the drivers, and some experienced drivers too, like JF Dumoulin, have told me, there's LP Dumoulin in the WeatherTech number 47, but they've told me because this is such a sheltered track, there's walls on both sides, you don't get any breeze. And it would be surprising to most to find out that a cross breeze can actually help cool brakes, help cool your tires, and most importantly, help cool the bead of those tires, because once you start heating up those brakes, it's not necessarily the brakes that fail, but you heat the wheel melts the bead of the tire, and then you have a flat tire.
And that is absolutely a problem. But you're right, any sort of air circulation through the tire, the hub area, and around the brakes will benefit you. As LP Dumoulin is making his way around, 2-time winner here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. We got a quick glimpse of Alex Tagliani as well, who has won 3 of the last 4 here. It's just been a remarkable run.
And he's been quick, and he's been running in that modified series, the Chevrolet Urban Challenge as well. I want to focus our attention right now to the nose of this Dodge Challenger for LP Dumoulin. Look at the cooling section along the bottom. That is significantly larger than what we would see at even a short track. Even if you look in behind, Kevin Lacroix is coming through, and his is considerably smaller. So the Dumoulin Competition team have figured out something that they need cooling in this car, and they are going to get it by cutting a huge hole in the front fairing of this Dodge Challenger.
That's very interesting, because I'd have to go back and look at some pictures, and you can see the car behind does not have as large an open grill area underneath that Dodge logo. And it looks like that is a larger opening that has been cut in for this event. If I remember the front of that car, that looks like a larger opening than normal.
I think they've incorporated the brake cooling ducts, as you can see on the Chevrolets, for example. So they have the radiator cooling area, the main black section in the front, and then they have the brake cooling ducts, essentially where there would be fog lights on your street car. Well, what has happened with the Dodge Challenger, because you don't have all those elements on the nose, you can incorporate them all together. And that's what Dumoulin has done. Is a problem there for the Leland IHL number 64 of Mark Dilley as he goes for a little bit of a spin. I think he just took the runoff area, and currently sitting 19th.
Not uncommon to see that for drivers during his practice session, especially as they are beginning to test the limits of how deep they can break into some corners and trying to see how their car reacts and behaves, and understanding that there is a runoff area. If it is too deep and you're not going to be able to make that corner, get the car slowed down just a little bit, use the runoff area to get turned around, not cause a problem, and then rejoin the battle.
See, by comparison, look at the nose of the 12 of Matthew Kingsbury. So another Dodge Challenger, and you have that main opening, but he's got essentially a space between where the brake ducts are. And you can see the brake ducts because they're the circles. Those are brake fans, essentially. So the drivers have the ability to turn the fans on, turn them off. If the temperature cools off and you don't necessarily need to draw power to power those fans, you can shut them off. But you see, it's a series of openings, whereas Dumoulin has done it as just one. So interesting new take on the front of that 47.
Mark Dilley, after his little loop around in the runoff area, making a return to pit lane. So is the 12 of Matthew Kingsbury. Still Marc-Antoine Camirand with the quickest time, followed by Andrew Ranger, J.F. Dumoulin in the 04, Kevin Lacroix, and L.P. Dumoulin, your top 5, just still very early, about 16 minutes gone in this practice session.
And we talked about how good Alex Tagliani has been here at the GP3R in that Viagra Saint-Hubert number 18. He's coming off a win at Saskatoon in one of the twin 125s, so his confidence level is up there as well after having an absolutely atrocious stop in Edmonton where absolutely nothing went right. Like they were supremely disappointed with that finish in a pretty torn-up race car too. As the 96 of Marc-Antoine Camirand, turn number 8, he goes for a quick loop and he'll head down pit lane. Does he have damage to the back end of that car?
Did not get a look to see if he contacted anything.
Now that issues on the 92 of Dexter Stacey, so full course caution.
That might have been the 66 of Wallace Stacey, I think. But yes, it is a full course caution, and we'll find out as they retrieve that car.
Yeah, so that'll slow things down. There you can see the red and white. That's the 55, one of the new drivers, Serge Bordeaux, joining the series for the first time here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Expect to see him a couple more times over the course of the season. Currently 24th on the time charts. No, it is the 92 of Dexter Stacey. Yeah, but look at the water. So the overflow, and that's an indication that the car is overheating. So I don't know if Dexter Stacey has lost forward drive and he's sitting there idling the car, or if that is what happened. Essentially, the engine melted down, and now it's overheating, wasn't getting the proper cooling. So this is going to be problems for the EHR team and the Bullies Truck Stop Chevrolet of Dexter Stacey. They'll have to do a little thrashing. There goes Wallace Stacey in the 66 through across the bottom of your screen. Can tell you that Dexter Stacey was 11th on the times through practice, had completed 8 laps.
He's gotten a lot of track time this weekend and with previous GP3R events too, and running multiple series, and then getting into the NASCAR Pinty Series at the end of the weekend as well. Nice to see such a great crowd here already at GP3R. Haven't even just past the noon hour, I guess, and fans are streaming in, as Dave mentioned. It's hot, it's humid, stay hydrated. Everyone looks to be doing their very best, but what a great crowd that we have seen. Even yesterday we had a terrific crowd here for the Fast Friday, and now today it's going to be even bigger.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to tomorrow's event as well. Now, the one thing we haven't talked about, because you never really want to talk about it when you're at a racetrack, is the forecast for tomorrow. And we've been checking it fairly diligently since we landed here in Trois-Rivières, but as of right now, it does call for likely showers tomorrow afternoon. Time-wise, we still don't know. Hard to pin that down. But the NASCAR Pinty Series rolls off at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so this could very well be a rain race on the streets of the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, and that throws a completely different variable into the mix. You're setting up your race car now for dry conditions. You'll qualify in dry conditions. Tomorrow, you may race full wet.
Just to keep it interesting, we're going to shake it up for you one more time. But it proves and illustrates that it is a team sport. They have to be adaptable and understand that things can change, circumstances change, whether it's the weather, whether it's a race dynamic by an untimely caution or something unexpected that occurs. That's part of the team aspect. You have to be able to adapt and deal with it, as we're looking at the 74 of Kevin Lacroix in those new colors along pit road, and hopefully we're just about cleared of that 92 of Dexter Stacey, and we'll get cars back out on track.
You can see the tape on the fender of the 74. Now that's there for the crew, so they will measure tire pressures, measure the overall diameter of the tire to set stagger if they want to put stagger into it. But that's essentially their notepad. They'll write it down. So they'll say, we went out, session 1, we went out with 20 pounds in the left front, and it did this, and it grew to this size, or it gained this many pressure when we came back in. So you can have a start and a finish and keep your notes right on that piece of tape. They'll transfer it into a notepad or a database later on. But yeah, at the end of practice, you can rip it off and still have a clean race car kind of thing.
Simply for convenience during the practice session, is your notes are right in front of you and you can compare. You don't have to pull the notebook out and just have a quick look at what's happening.
If somebody else is doing the tire pressures too, they jump over the wall and they're setting tire pressures, well, then they have all the information as well. You don't have to pass a notebook back and forth. But it is a smart move by the 74 team, and really, I mean, they've been around the block several times. They've been at this game for a long time in the NASCAR Pinty Series, so they know exactly what to do. Good look there at the 59 of Gary Klutz. He took a look underneath the 20, so we're not quite green just yet. So the cars have been released as the 52 of Dexter Stacey has been pushed back to the pit area. So the new Techwood number 59 thought about passing, and then he's like, wait, we're not racing yet, so hang on.
I don't think we can do that just yet, but the cars are back out on track. They'll take the green at the starter stand, and that will indicate that the entire track is green. And again, you may adjust your position to the car in front of you as you're circulating around. But again, still practice. And you wonder if Gary Klutz just maybe thought, there's an opportunity just to pull out in front of a car, just to sort of test what that inside line might be like going into corner number 6 without actually making the pass, but just an opportunity to see what that car looks like.
See what it feels like, how many bumps are down there. It's been a long time since Gary Klutz has run here at the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivières. He's running a full season in that new Techwood number 59, and we talked about drivers that had a frustrating Western road trip in the NASCAR Pinty Series. You would really have to circle the 59 of Gary Klutz as one of those drivers. Did not meet expectations for that team as he had some issues at Saskatoon, and he suffered some damage and did not finish in the second of 2 twin 125s in Saskatoon. So he came into that race third in points, fell down the point standings just a little bit, but it's so tight when you talk about points in the NASCAR Pinty Series here in 2022. First off, you have about 10 or 12 drivers who realistically have a chance at winning a race on a dry track, no variables, no rain thrown in there, but it's 10 or 12 really quality drivers who can win any given race, and now you've got a super tight point standings as well.
Normally during the season, once the series has completed the Western swing in a traditional season as we're having this year, the championship has metered down to 3 or 4, maybe a 5th competitor. But the championship this year, even if you're 20 points out, that is more that can be made up in the final few events of the season, as we have seen last year in the final 3 events. LP Dumoulin clawed his way forward to overtake Alex Tagliani and score his 3rd championship last year. That could happen again this year. There will likely be another big shuffle, and they are just so tight right now in the points.
And a big shuffle because of the number of entrants we have here, too. 26 cars is one of the biggest numbers of entrants here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières since, I believe, 2014, when we had 33 cars. So this is a really good turnout for this race. But for those drivers who are looking to make up time in the points battle, if you have a bad event here and you finish in 26th position, that's a lot of distance. If you're racing with 14 other cars, it does not shake up the points battle as much as it would if you have 26.
No question. The importance of not having a bad day becomes significant. And it's interesting, too, that we have seen each of the top 5 or 6 drivers have a day where they have struggled a little bit, and it becomes managing expectations, minimizing the damage. So it's not just about we have to score a win or we want to need a podium finish at every race. You have to understand what your circumstances are in every event. You're not going to win every event, but you have to gain the maximum amount of points that are available to you that day.
Kevin Lacroix has been one driver who's done that very well. Of course, he comes in as your points leader here to this event, but he had one of those races at the the Twin 125s, the Leland Twin 125s at Sutherland Automotive Speedway in Saskatoon. So the first race, he got collected. He'd slowed up and was hoping to avoid a crash in front of him. And then somebody else piled into the back of him and turned him big damage to that 74. So not as high a finish as he wanted for that first race. They went to a backup car, sort of untested backup car, started at the back of the second one and managed to finish at the front, a top 5 finish for that 74 team. So that just, it goes to show you it's again, a day of managing your expectations. Let's just get out of here with the best finish we possibly can, and they did, and that's why they find themselves atop the point standings. But it's a 1-point difference between him and DJ Kennington, and Kennington is another driver who has been quietly just there. You know, every race, he'll fall back in the beginning of the race. He does a typical DJ Kennington thing, and then all of a sudden he's Mr. Where'd you come from?
Had a third-place finish at the Autodrome Chaudière earlier this season, then followed that up with a third-place finish in Newfoundland. Then didn't have his best day in Toronto, but scored a victory at one of the races in Saskatoon as well. So, again, taking advantage of the opportunity, a 1-point difference. And as I said, in the final events of this season, I expect there will be more shuffling of the points. And DJ's a former winner here in Montreal, or in Trois-Rivières as well. Snagged the win away from Jacques Vilna that year.
Yeah, and so he can do it. He's got it in him. He hasn't been as happy with his street, circuit, and road course program as he would like. He says the oval is much better sorted, but we're working on the road course car and the street circuit car and trying to get it figured out, and they will, and expect him to be in the play here today. If not in the top 5, he'll definitely be hanging out in the top 10. And again, smart driver, he's not going to take any unnecessary risks as Dominic St. Cyr goes for a slide in turn number 8, uses every bit of that runoff area, chasing Ray Jr. Quartermanche back in the Fast Eddie Speedwear. Ray Jr. investment number 8. So Ray Jr. doing the road courses here in 2022, and then Raphael Lazard gets the wheel for the oval circuits. So Raphael Lazard will be next in that car for the Ohsweken race on the dirt. Todd Lewis takes a bit of a break, heading down to take care of some of his TV duties for the NASCAR Pinty Series on TSN. There is a good look at the Castrol Edge Dodge, the 17 of DJ Kennington. And again, it's just practice. There's no real reason to push and cause any huge issues. But where's DJ Kennington on the times right now? Sitting in 7th position, so he's just ahead of Jacques Villeneuve in the 07, just behind Alex Tagliani. We'll take you through the quickest times so far. Marc-Antoine Cameron, then it's LP Dumoulin, Andrew Ranger, JF Dumoulin, Kevin Lacroix, Alex Tagliani, DJ Kennington, Jacques Villeneuve, Gary Klutz, and Alex Gannett. That is your top 5 as it sits right now. Sam Fellows in 11th position. So that's a really good run for that driver, who again had a pretty good showing on the streets of Toronto and unfortunately made a mistake on the last restart, and that cost him a few positions, but he still came home well within the top 15. Dexter Stacey with those issues still has the 12th quickest time. Then JP Bergeron, Ray Jr. Quartermanche, Trayton Lapsevich, LP Montour, Wallace Stacey, Matthew Kingsbury, Dominic St. Cyr, Simon Dion-Vienne, Brandon Watson, Larry Jackson, Mark Dilley, Serge Bordeaux, TJ Renamato, and Glenn Stiers. That is your 26 runners as it sits right now with 40 minutes left to go here in the NASCAR Pinty Series practice. Saw a good glimpse of the WeatherTech Belmar, number 47 of LP Dumoulin. Back out on track, second quickest right now, as we mentioned, and he'll head for pit lane to make a few adjustments. So it's a couple lap spurts. I think they do about 4 laps at a time. So you get the car up to temperature, you get the tires up to temperature too, and you really can take a good idea and some measurements, find out what the car is going to do over the course of a short stint. Towards the end of this practice session, you'll likely see the time start to fall. That's when they'll strap on some new General tires sometimes, or at least set it up for their qualifying run. So they'll put some tape on the nose and get things squared away to make that qualifying run. Again, qualifying is coming up today at 4 o'clock this afternoon. And so it'll be another few hours of the track cooking under these hot temperatures. Again, a heat warning in effect here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Currently 26 degrees is the air temperature. Track temperature is much, much higher than that, likely over 110 Fahrenheit right now. A team up on jack stands. That does not indicate that there's something significant amiss with the Tagliani machine, just making some changes. It looks like they were working on the back end, so trying to get that back end to work just a little bit better. So there's different suspension links that they can make big adjustments for. And obviously, if they feel they need to change a gear, they have the ability to do that as well. But by the time we'll be qualifying today, it'll be 29 degrees and sunny, according to Environment Canada. We take a look at the Lacroix tuning Napa number 74 of Kevin Lacroix. He'd been running the familiar red and white scheme to start this year. He saw ESR Wheels go on as a primary sponsor as they quietly work this deal with Napa behind the scenes, and this beautiful machine is the end result. Now, interesting to see the number goes back to the door on the 74 of Kevin Lacroix. So he'd been running one of those rear quarter panel numbers, which is the source of many debates on social media. Do you like it there, or do you like the door panel saved for primary sponsorship location? The zero car looks to have stalled going into turn number 6, just ahead of the 74 of Kevin Lacroix. He's got Wallace Stacey just in behind in the 66. So Kevin Lacroix currently 5th on the time charts. Glenn Stiers in the 0 is down in 26th position. Wallace Stacey in 18th. So not a bad practice session for the man from Kanawaki, Quebec, in Wallace Stacey, 66. So the sounds of horsepower reverberate through the concrete canyon that is the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières, as we continue with the only practice session in the NASCAR Pinty Series. And unlike other stops this season, a full practice session for the Tour and then a full qualifying session separate from the practice. As you see, Lacroix has a little bit of tape to the nose of the front of the 74, the right front corner. I didn't see him make contact with anybody, but likely did. They had to make a repair to the fiberglass nose as Wallace Stacey hangs it out in turn number 1. Quick puff of the right front brake for the 70 or 07 of Jacques Vilna, 8th position on the times right now. His last time was a 1:11.677. Give you an idea of quickest time time so far as J.F. Dumoulin has now gone to the top of the sheets with a 107.687. So Marc-Antoine Cameron, LP Dumoulin, Andrew Ranger, Kevin Lacroix, still your top 5. Tag, DJ Kennington, Villeneuve, Gary Kloot, and Alex Gannett. That is your top 10 as it sits right now, as you saw work happening on the AER number 98 of Sam Fellows. But we continue to watch the 07 Prolong Controls Dodge of Jacques Villeneuve. And there you see a more typical nose cutout for that Dodge Challenger on the 07. So a small opening for the radiator and then 3 circle openings for the brake ducts. And to get air into the hoses and through the fans for braking here on this demanding street circuit at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Through the Duplessis gates. So we're just over halfway through the practice session for the NASCAR Pinty Series. Again, still to come. We'll have a little bit of a lunch break, about an hour lunch break, and then we'll get into the Nissan Sentra Cup and the Formula 1600s. That'll happen starting at 2 o'clock. Both will be races, so races that matter, chasing checkered flags. This one is just practice, and practice does not pay the bills, but it does give us an idea of who's going to be quickest come qualifying. But I did have a peek at my weather app and looked at the hour to hour, and for tomorrow, race starts at noon. It looks like an 80% chance of showers starting at about 11 o'clock tomorrow morning. So we could be, in fact, racing a wet race here at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières come tomorrow as we continue to watch former Formula One world champion Jacques Vilna you might have heard earlier on in this practice session, the car prepared out of the Dumoulin Competition shop. And Villeneuve did get a practice session at Circuit Icar, which is a track that is very, very different from this one here at the GP3R, but it's his first start since 2014. It'll be his 4th time driving here at the GP3R. And remember, in the time since, Jacques Villeneuve has started in the Daytona 500, the NASCAR Cup Series. Villeneuve, after racing here in 2013, that's where he stood on the podium, 3rd place. He led 29 laps that day. So looking to rekindle some of the magic of nearly 10 years ago. It's funny how quickly time flies. But Villeneuve back in the seat after spending time at NASCAR Europe, of course, as we mentioned, making a start in the NASCAR Cup Series at the Daytona 500. Might be some issues on the 47 of LP Dumoulin as that car is weaving side to side. Potentially a fuel pickup issue. Sometimes you'll see the drivers do that, trying to slosh the gas around in the tank. Now it seems to be back up to full song as he works through turns 1 and 2. LP Dumoulin 3rd on the running order right now behind his brother J.F. Dumoulin and Marc-Antoine Cameron. J.F. Dumoulin the quickest so far. Marc-Antoine Cameron is 2nd in the 96. All 26 cars have been on track for at least a handful of laps. The most laps completed so far is the 13 of LP Montour, 23 laps, and he's 17th, which is kind of surprising. I thought I'd see him a little bit further up, but LP Dumoulin has done 20, so he's up there as well. JP Bergeron in the 1 is running in that modified series, so he's gained some experience there. As Bergeron is in 15th, but he could potentially gain some ground in the Jostens Rookie of the Year point standings because Brandon Watson leads that, and he's in 22nd on the timesheets right now. So a couple of stories within the stories that we've been following and we will be following over the course of this race weekend for the NASCAR Pinty Series. And now Dumoulin goes even quicker, a new quick time in practice, a 106.913. So if there was something wrong with that car, it isn't anymore because LP Dumoulin just went quicker than his brother JF Dumoulin by about 0.7 of a second. With about 28 minutes left to be completed. Now changes happening to the 0.7 of Jacques Vilna. There is your new quick runner, the 47 of LP Dumoulin. Marc-Antoine Cameron has been pretty quiet since setting a quick time early on in this practice session. Now with 28 minutes left to go, we should see him come out and probably do something fast. Andrew Ranger spent 13 minutes in the pits, and he's back out on track. Only 9 laps completed for the driver of the 27 as we welcome back Todd Lewis after completing his TV duties for NASCAR on TSN. But be interesting to see. Andrew Ranger is a guy who he'll park it if his car is right. If he feels it's good, he'll come down pit lane, he'll stop it, and he'll say, we don't have to touch this for a little while.
There are drivers that will say, yes, the car is the way I want it. They will have consultations with their crew chief. They might want to ensure that there's some adjustability in that car depending on conditions and how they evolve throughout the weekend. But so many drivers feel, I don't want to put any extra laps on the car. You don't want to tax it unnecessarily. If your car is good, you're happy with the handling, you're happy with the speed that you're generating out of it, it makes 0 sense to pound lap after lap after lap in practice and simply wear out tires or put added stresses, unnecessary stresses on your machinery.
School is in session, though, for the 39 of Alex Gannett, and this is what young drivers do. Andrew Ranger has taught so many of these drivers how to drive on a road and street circuit just because he's out there on the track. Everybody wants to follow the 27. He was always known as the master of road and street circuits, and so Alex Gannett is doing exactly that. Gannett is down in 12, so he's having a pretty decent day, but he wants to know the quick way of getting around the GP3R, and why not follow somebody who really knows how to do it, and that's Andrew Ranger.
And Andrew is such a good teacher as well, because he will have conversations with other drivers outside of the track, and he will tell them, go ahead and follow me. Doing so is a bit of a challenge at times because Andrew is so smooth and will brake later and later than you imagine is possible depending on the corner. But he'll also give you little hints and say, watch this or watch this particular corner. Here's an area or something that I look for. And I don't know if you want to practice the four-wheel drift the way he just did there coming through corner number 1, but he makes it work. And he will tell drivers to look for these things. And talking to drivers after these conversations, they've said, it's amazing how much you learn just having a quick 30-second, 45-second chat with Andrew giving you something to look for, something to look at. They make noticeable gains in the first.
Of course, he won in the IndyCar series before jumping into a NASCAR ride, and there you see that car stepping out. But that is also one of Andrew Ranger's strengths, is his car control. Turning left or right, it doesn't matter. He's got that seat in the pants feel. And he knows when the car is stepping out, and he knows how to control the throttle, how to control the brake as well. You heard the locking up of tires just ahead of that too. That was the 0 of Glenn Stiers, who struggles to get a hold of this track, and I think he's thinking maybe I can follow Andrew Ranger and pick up some tips.
It would not be a bad thing to try to follow him around. I don't know that Glenn is quite ready to stay with him for a full lap yet, especially braking as deep as Andrew does in so many of the corners. But even if you pick up something on one lap, and then you can try it and build it into your repertoire and knowledge, then find him again later on in the session, pick up something else. And that's what this time on track is for, to learn, to gain information, understand how the track is behaving, how it's evolving, because halfway through the practice session, in fact beyond that, the track will feel very different than it did at the start of this session.
There you can see the 96, another GM Paillet entry. That's Marc-Antoine Cameron, third on the timesheets as Andrew Ranger continues to head out and try and set a lap. It's a pretty busy track right now. There's a lot of traffic out there, as JP Bergeron found out as well. In the one car, the Prolong Controls Rousseau Metals #1, and Bergeron from nearby. This is sort of his home track race. Autodrome Chaudière was one of them. This is another one, and he wants to put on a good show in front of both the sponsors, but family and friends as well.
No question. He too having a pretty good rookie season as well, running some very strong efforts on some of the ovals in particular, posting top 10 finishes, and it's a pretty close rookie battle as well as a championship battle for the overall title in the NASCAR 50 Series.
You know what I noticed about the 27 of Andrew Ranger? The last time we ran on a street circuit was in Toronto, and that car was very free. It was very loose. When he tried to catch up to the back of the 74 of Kevin Lacroix, who eventually won that race, he couldn't really get close enough to do it, and it looks like this car is very similar to that one as the way it's been handling. So through turn 1, it's very free, and it just seems to be like it's floating on the racetrack. So I wonder if he's stopping down pit lane, maybe get it tightened up just a smidge.
Possibly. That's the 96 GM Paillet car, Marc-Antoine Cameron. The best way that I found to tell the difference between the two is the red on the roof of the Andrew Ranger car. It is white on the 96 of Marc-Antoine Cameron. So that's how I picked him up, and that's JP Bergeron following him along as well. Again, I bet a little school visit session there.
You know, Cameron is quick. JC Paillet, the owner of GM Paillet, starting up his own team here in 2022 after Marc-Antoine Cameron was sort of left in limbo as far as a ride goes. And this came together very, very late in the season. It did not affect the performance of Marc-Antoine Cameron. Again, he's had several strong runs. He's visited victory lane a couple of times, including on the Western road trip in Edmonton. Comes into this 30 in points, unfortunately picking up a penalty which they have appealed and are waiting for a ruling on. So Cameron is still third in points in the series, but he's having really a dynamite season so far in that 96. A couple of times he said over the radio to his crew, this car is a rocket ship, and he's not wrong.
At the season opener at Sunset Speedway, finished 4th, led over 250 laps, could have very easily won that race, but it got away from him. At the Autodrome Chaudière, finished 2nd to his teammate, Andrew Ranger, also could have easily won that race. Before the victories in Newfoundland and in Edmonton, and also had himself a very good finish in Saskatoon with a 3rd place result as well. So Marc-Antoine Cameron having a very good year.
Yeah, he did get some bad luck in that second Twin 125 in Saskatoon. So that's the blip on his radar so far this year, as far as you know, an unfortunate race goes. But you can expect that 96 to be at or near the front every step of the way here in all 60 laps. And we'll talk about the race format just a little bit. There's a mandatory pit stop. You have to stop. Whether or not you need to stop is a different story. The cars can probably go the distance on fuel. You add in a couple caution periods, it'll be tight. But the way NASCAR has said, you're going to have to come in a mandatory fuel stop. You don't need to take tires, just fuel.
And that's where some very different strategies could possibly play out in the 60-lap race tomorrow. I've had a few conversations with team members about that and trying to decide when to make that pit stop. It is mandatory. I don't know that anyone would want to say we're going in and we're not stopping if it were allowed. just because 60 is so close. I don't know if we want to do that. Then it becomes a question of how early do you start? And what if you get overtime and the race is extended a little bit? So you want to give yourself a little bit of a buffer and also open up the window of options as well. So do you stop early? Are you going to be able to use the undercut? Are you going to get the benefit or hampered by an untimely caution period? These are all the items that we don't know. Watching Jacques Vilna have a conversation with his crew chief, Bill Burns.
Hands in the air for Bill Burns, talking about the traffic out on the racetrack, as a matter of fact. So Jacques Vilna kind of talking about his frustration with trying to get by some of the traffic that is out there, and Bill Burns saying that he'll be okay with the times that he's been putting in. He will be competitive.
How much time's left?
And 19 minutes left, Bill Burns. So there's still plenty of time. I guess it's a battery issue on the 007, so they'll have to replace or possibly an alternator issue. So they'll get that fixed up before qualifying later on. Villeneuve has fallen down the time charts just a little bit, sitting in 11th position. But again, this practice session for him is just sort of a feeling out, getting comfortable with the car once again, as both Gannett and Sam Fellows have passed by. Trayton Lapsevich as well has put in a pretty quick lap, as we see Lapsevich in the RGC quick Chevrolet goes for a loop in turn number 1.
The donuts come after the race. I think that was a little premature. I don't think it was intended, of course, but here's a look at Trayton Lapsevich just getting a little too hot in corner number 1. A little bit wide there, too. We saw that in the Legends race, one of the cars. And, yeah, he's just trying to get that car woed up and
tire hop.
Jumps into corner number 1.
Yeah, that's the problem with these cars. It's a obviously rear-wheel drive cars, and you have to downshift with using the clutch in a lot of occasions, and some of these younger drivers just don't have that feel for downshifting just yet. So if you downshift too quickly, the revs are too high, the wheels actually lose traction when you release the clutch, and that equals that tire hop going into the corner. As you can see, Jacques Vilna making his way back to the paddock area, getting hydrated on this very hot day.
Not going to be a big deal that he's going to pass on the final 17, 18 minutes of this practice session. So they'll have a good feel for the car, and they'll have a good understanding of what it is they need to adjust on and be ready for the qualifying, which will be group qualifying later on this afternoon. So it won't be just 1 or 2 hot laps. It's you'll go out with the group and you'll be able to run as many as you see fit.
The only problem with that I see is if some of those runners that he was concerned about being around on the track and difficult to get around or get a clear lap, if they start putting in some fast laps, he could drop down the running order and get put into a different group as well. So Villeneuve is right now in 11th position. So, you know, it all depends as we see a first look at Larry Jackson, the O'Neill Electric, number 84, and back to Andrew Ranger, who's back on track in the 27. Still is Elfie Dumoulin, the fastest of this practice so far. JF Dumoulin, Marc-Antoine Cameron. Then it's Ranger and Lacroix, your top 5 as they run right now with 16 and a half minutes left.
That's the other part of the Jacques Villeneuve story as well. His teammates, LP and JF Dumoulin, 1-2 on the timesheet. So they understand what's needed and what's necessary to create a fast race car here around the 11-turn circuit at the Grand Prix de Trois-Rivières. Now, of course, that's going to get adjusted a little bit based on personal driving style, but the base setup, they're there. Watching another one of the strongest contenders here, or expected contenders at Trois-Rivières, and Andrew Ranger in that familiar number 27 working his way around. Watching that car drift outside.
They did not tighten it up, guaranteed. As Andrew Ranger loves a loose race car. And that one is but it's so stable under braking. Look at that, even over the bumps going into turn number 6. Corner exit, you get on the gas, the tail gets a little happy, but that's all right.
This is perhaps a great illustration of the kind of qualifying lap. We'll wait and see what the ultimate time is, but look how under control that car is going through the corners, coming through corner number 8 and just gently sweeping over to the left-hander around corner number 9 and then getting the power down as quickly as you can, but not going too far to the right to have to overcorrect for the right-hander.
thing is, we talked about Jacques Vilna taking a pass on the last 17 minutes or so of this practice session. And, you know, he's got 19 laps already under his belt here. And again, this is just sort of a familiarity session for the 07 team. So it's all, again, saving those brakes, saving the car, saving the engine. You just, a lot less laps on the drivetrain and the equipment. Whoa, as Andrew Ranger nearly collects that wall. He's got actually on the brakes there to slow things down.
And that's unusual for Andrew Ranger, that he would actually have to get off the accelerator and not correct with the steering wheel. But we saw him earlier with the four-wheel drift going out. So yes, it's practice, but the part of the practice is finding the limits of these cars, and they will be tested during the race. So you are best to find out how your car is going to react and behave prior to having to put it to that test.
Saw a quick glimpse of Alex Gannett as well, up to 9th place. So following Andrew Ranger once again on the racetrack is a smart move as Alex Gannett continues to see his times fall. So to give you an idea, Ranger just put in his quickest time so far. It's a 1:07.915, so he's just a shade back of Marc-Antoine Cameron, and that's almost his second back of LP Dumoulin, who put in an absolute cracker of a lap.
That 1:06.9 is an unbelievable lap for LP Dumoulin, with his brother JF Dumoulin right behind him, Marc-Antoine Cameron, Andrew Ranger, Kevin Lacroix, the top 5 currently. Rounding out the rest of the top 10 would be Alex Tagliani in the 18.6, DJ Kennedy 7, Trayton Labs of the 20, Alex Gannett, and how about the 98 of Sam Fellows, who has the quickest time right now with a 1:08.7.
Yeah, and outside of that really fast lap laid down by the 47, I mean, the field is relatively close. I mean, it's 0.7 of a second between the 47 and the 04 as it sits right now. So if you eliminate that anomaly, it almost looks like it was just a really, really fast lap. But as far as consistency goes, I mean, the rest of the field is going to be very, very close as far as their fastest time. So qualifying is going to be pretty interesting. We'll see if LP Dumoulin can duplicate what he did here in practice. But he had a clean run, clean track ahead of him, and just sort of everything came together right.
That's exactly the kind of qualifying lap that you're enough room in front of and behind you so that you don't have to think about anyone else on track. Just focus on the corner at hand that is approaching. Get the correct apex, get the car slowed down at the right moment, and then maximize the acceleration out of that corner. Perfect lap almost for LP Dumoulin. We're continuing to watch Andrew Ranger out on course without an awful lot of traffic.
Yeah, it seems
if everybody's just kind of saying 5, 6, 7 minutes left, maybe we've done all we can do, or there might be some that just wait until the last minute for a quick lap or two.
Yeah, that's when they put the qualifying setup underneath the car, put some tape on the nose, and you don't want to run too many laps with tape on the nose, especially on a day like today. You will overheat that engine, and it doesn't matter the make or model, it will overheat if it doesn't get the air it needs. And so Andrew Ranger done with his practice session for now. As the crew goes to the window, lowers it down, 6.5 minutes left, and we have just a few cars left on track. Matthew Kingsbury has just set one of his fastest times of the session, 15th quickest. So that's a pretty good run for the driver of the 12.
1:09.4, that's good. Mark Gilly as well with a 1:10.7, and oh, that is not the way you want to have your practice session come to an end. And we'll get a look at the 55 of Serge Bordeaux, who goes way off the end of the track.
Bordeaux, a brand new rookie to the NASCAR Pinty's series. As a matter of fact, that's a brand new race car too. I saw some water leaking out. I thought the radiator may have been ruptured, but it's not the case. Water from the tires, so that's good news. But a lot of body damage and likely some front end alignment issues. The happy news, it is a tire wall and not a concrete wall, so the crew will go to work in trying to get that repaired. Bordeaux, a friend of Sylvain Lacroix, who is Kevin Lacroix's father. So it's that whole conversation that started. Bordeaux, owner of Excellence Chrysler. And acquiring this Dodge Challenger in time for the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivières, but it's a tough track to really sort of get your feet wet in the NASCAR Pinty Series. I mean, there are tougher tracks out there, but this is going to be a tough one because there is no room to hide. If you make a mistake, you immediately get penalized.
Exactly correct. The 55, as you mentioned, it is a brand new car that they did run out for just a few laps earlier this week just to shake it down, make sure there were no leaks and everything. These are the first laps of the driver in that car on that course, as we're watching Alex Tagliani, who has the tail end just a little bit loose coming through corner 3.
Tagliani 6th quickest so far, just behind Kevin Lacroix, and I looking at the time, the number of laps completed. Tagliani is 23 in the book, so he is one of the drivers with the most laps completed in this practice session. Serge Bordeaux has 27. Glenn Steyer's actually 33 laps completed so far in this practice session. So again, it's some of those newer drivers that are trying to get used to it. As you see the nose slam down to the ground for the 18 of Tagliani. He's on it for this one.
This is a mock qualifying run for Alex Tagliani as he's coming through the final couple of corners and back out onto the front straightaway. You see where he lines up when he comes across the start-finish line with a 107.9, his best time, good for 5th quick in this session.
Yeah, and just a few hundredths of a second back of Andrew Ranger. So Ranger has a 107.91, Tagliani with a 107.96. And now you can see he backs right off. I think he's just going to do the one lap. He might do another one here to try and get a little bit more out of that. But if it was a mock qualifying run, you essentially want to lay down that heater of a lap, and then you can back off and bring it back to pit lane.
He did. He slowed down. I think got a little deep actually in corner number 1. Slowed up just a little bit. We'll see if he does decide to get back on it here for one more lap in the final 3 minutes. Just past under 3 minutes left in this practice session.
Alex Gannett's best time just in behind in the 39 car is a 108.5. So about 0.6 of a second off the best time of the 18 Viagra St. Hubert Chevy of Alex Tagliani, as Gannett will stay on track. Tagliani heading down pit lane as Todd Lewis once again heads down to the paddock area to take care of some NASCAR on TSN duties. Todd is the pit reporter for the NASCAR on TSN and has been for, I think about 20 years. Not to age him, but very knowledgeable about the series as he's been traveling coast to coast with them for that entire time. As you can see, the 18 of Tagliani down pit lane, and it's not a very crowded pit lane at this point as well either, as the crew goes to work putting the jack stands underneath. So it looks like it's going to be pretty major changes coming, or this one, it could be done as far as the practice session goes, and it might be because a minute and 48 seconds left in this 1 hour and 5 minute practice session for the NASCAR Pinty Series here at the Grand Prix of Trois-Rivières. Scott Steckley is crew chief in the window, talking to Alex Tagliani, asking him about the car, if he's happy, what changes he might need heading into qualifying later on this afternoon. Again, 4 o'clock will be the start time for the Pinty Series qualifying. We'll bring it to you here live as the 47 of LP Dumoulin all the way back in the paddock area already. He is done, and he is quickest in practice for the NASCAR Pinty Series with a cracker of a lap. The only driver down into the 106, 1 minute 6 second range, 106.9. Followed by JF Dumoulin, a 107.2, and then Marc-Antoine Cameron, a 107.9. 107.90, Andrew Ranger at a 107.91, and then Alex Tagliani with a 107.96. Those are the only drivers into the 107s as well, as Marc-Antoine Cameron goes his quickest to 107.8. So he closes the gap on those two Dumoulin Competition cars. The drivers out of Trois-Rivières, Dumoulin and J.F. Dumoulin, the quickest on the field so far. Cameron's on another flyer of a lap. We'll see what he can do as far as his lap time goes. A couple of drivers out there doing mock qualifying runs. Cameron appears to be one of them. Tidy in turn number 8. Little loose on the exit of turn number 9 through 10. Little right-hander kink. He'll touch the curbing in turn 11. That is the end of the practice session, and Cameron not quite as quick as he was the lap previous. A 107.958 his last lap. So if you're looking strictly at lap times as the practice session comes to an end, qualifying is going to be very interesting. And it'll be group qualifying, so they'll set the groups based on their practice times. So LP Dumoulin, JF Dumoulin, Marc-Antoine Cameron, Andrew Ranger, Alex Tagliani, Kevin Lacroix, DJ Kennington, Trayton Lapsevich, Alex Gannett, Sam Fellows. That's your top 10. Then Jacques Vilna, Gary Clute, Dexter Stacey, JP Bergeron, Matthew Kingsbury, Ray Jr. Courtemanche, LP Montour, Larry Jackson, Dominic St. Cyr, Simon Dion-Vienne, Brandon Watson, Mark Dilley, Serge Bordeaux, TJ Renamato, Glenn Stiers, and Wallace Stacey is your 26 cars who took time in this practice session. So we'll take a quick break. It'll actually be an hour break before we return with the Nissan Sentra Cup, the second race of the weekend for the Sentra Cup drivers. That one will start at 2 o'clock sharp. Once again, for Todd Lewis, I'm Dave Bradley. Thank you very much for joining us from the 52nd running of the Grand Prix of 20 Vier. We'll be back just before 2.